ChatGPT can now decide that you seem under 18, even if you entered an adult birthday when you created your account. If that happens, it can automatically place you into a more restricted teen experience. So no, ChatGPT is not simply asking your age. It is estimating your age from patterns around how you use it. That sounds like a small safety feature, but it creates a strange new trade-off. To protect teenagers, the system has to profile everyone well enough to separate teenagers from adults. OpenAI began rolling out ChatGPT for teens on August 18, 2026. It is intended for users between 13 and 17, and the rollout is expanding across regions. You can enter an age that places you in the teen experience, but OpenAI can also put you there when its age prediction system decides your account is likely operated by someone under 18. The first thing to understand is that this is not just a child-friendly color theme or a weaker chatbot. OpenAI describes it as the same capable ChatGPT with different rules, tools, and defaults layered around it. Some changes focus on schoolwork. Teen mode can encourage study mode, which walks through a problem using hints, questions, and knowledge checks. If a student appears to be using ChatGPT to shortcut an assignment, the chatbot may suggest working through it rather than immediately producing a finished answer. Teens and linked parents can also schedule study hours, when eligible new chats begin in study mode by default. Other changes focus on potentially harmful conversations. Teen accounts receive stronger safeguards around graphic violence, dangerous online challenges, unhealthy dieting, extreme beauty standards, and sexual, romantic, or violent roleplay. The system is also supposed to avoid language that suggests it has feelings, consciousness, or a special emotional bond with the teenager. That last part is important. A chatbot does not need to claim that it is alive for a user to become attached to it. Small phrases can create the impression of a relationship. Constant reassurance, pet names, promises that it will always be there, or language suggesting that nobody else understands the user can make a prediction machine feel like a loyal friend. Research involving adolescents has found that a more relational chatbot style can increase perceived humanness, trust, and emotional closeness. Teen mode therefore tries to keep the interaction useful without encouraging the idea that ChatGPT is a person who needs, loves, or depends on the user. There are also reminders to take breaks and warnings before certain image uploads, especially when an image might contain private or sensitive information. Optional parental controls can add quiet hours, manage selected features, and send limited notifications in certain serious safety situations. Parents do not get access to the teenager's chat history just because the accounts are linked. If you like explanations that look underneath the interface and show what the technology is actually doing, subscribe, because the most interesting part here is not the list of restrictions. It is how ChatGPT decides who receives them. OpenAI has not published a complete formula for its age prediction. What it has disclosed is that the system may examine signals connected to the account. These can include the general topic someone discusses, the times of day they use ChatGPT, patterns in how the account is used, and how long the account has existed. Think of this as classification rather than mind reading. The system is not uncovering your biological age hidden inside a sentence. It is looking for combinations of signals that, in its training data or testing, were more commonly associated with younger or older users. One signal by itself might mean almost nothing. Asking for algebra help does not prove that you are 15. Plenty of adults study algebra, teach it, or help their children with homework. Using ChatGPT late at night also proves nothing. But a classifier can combine many weak clues. Homework questions arriving at school-like hours, repeated references to parents and teachers, an account created recently, and language patterns associated with younger users might collectively push an account past a threshold. The result is probably not a confident statement, like this person is 16. A more realistic output is something like, this account has a high enough probability of belonging to someone under 18 that the safer experience should be applied. OpenAI has not publicly revealed its exact threshold or the full technical architecture, so anything more specific would be speculation. This threshold creates two kinds of error. A false negative happens when a teenager is classified as an adult. The user keeps the standard experience and misses the stronger protections. A false positive happens when an adult is classified as a teenager. The adult suddenly encounters more cautious responses, content limits, or feature restrictions. From a child safety perspective, companies have an incentive to lean toward false positives. If the system is uncertain, placing someone in the safer version can appear less risky than accidentally giving a child the adult experience. OpenAI's own teen safety blueprint explicitly argues for defaulting to the under 18 experience when there is doubt. But that policy moves the cost of uncertainty onto adults who are incorrectly flagged. They can keep using ChatGPT with teen protections, or they can prove that they are adults. OpenAI currently uses a third-party verification provider called Persona. Depending on the country, an adult may be asked for a live selfie, a government ID, or both. OpenAI says Persona deletes the uploaded ID or selfie within 7 days. OpenAI says it does not receive the document itself, but it can receive age-related information, such as a date of birth or confirmation that the user is over 18. That creates a privacy paradox. The system begins by trying to avoid asking every user for an identity document. Behavioral estimation is less intrusive in one obvious sense, because most people do not upload an ID. But if the estimate is wrong, the appeal process may require information that is much more sensitive than the behavior that triggered the restriction. There is also a broader concern. General topics, usage times, account history, and interaction patterns can reveal more than age. They can suggest whether someone is a student, when they are usually awake, what they worry about, or how their routines are structured. Even if those signals are used only for safety classification, users may reasonably want to know what is analyzed, how long the result lasts, and how easily they can challenge it. None of this means age prediction is automatically a bad idea. Asking for a birthday is extremely easy to defeat. Requiring identification from every user creates its own security, privacy, and accessibility problems. Behavioral inference is an attempt to find a middle path. The problem is that there is no method that is simultaneously perfect, invisible, impossible to bypass, and free of sensitive data. Now we get to the biggest question. Do the extra guardrails actually make chatbot use safe for teenagers? They can reduce specific risks. A system trained not to participate in sexual role play with a minor should produce fewer dangerous interactions than one without that rule. Break reminders can interrupt very long sessions. Study-focused responses can make copying homework slightly less convenient. Warnings before uploading private images can stop at least some impulsive sharing. But guardrails change probabilities. They do not create guarantees. A teenager may phrase the same request indirectly, wrap it in fiction, or continue a conversation across dozens of messages until the context becomes ambiguous. A safety system may block an obvious harmful request, but mishandle a quieter conversation involving secrecy, emotional dependence, coercion, or disordered eating. These situations do not always announce themselves with a banned keyword. There is also a difference between blocking content and changing a relationship. A chatbot might avoid explicit romantic language while still becoming the user's main source of reassurance. It can remain available every hour, remember personal details, and respond with endless patience. One criticism raised by the child advocacy group Fair Play is that long-term memory is not necessarily restricted by default. OpenAI's parental controls allow saved memory to be managed, but that requires awareness and, in some cases, active intervention. Safety notifications have limits too. OpenAI says specially trained reviewers may evaluate serious self-harm concerns before a linked parent receives a notification. The company also warns that this is not real-time monitoring, may not catch every concern, and is not a replacement for emergency or professional help. The right way to think about teen mode is as a seatbelt, not an autonomous driver. It can reduce harm in certain situations, but it does not understand a teenager's entire life, know whether advice was followed, or notice everything happening outside the conversation. Parents should not interpret the label "for teens" as proof that every output is safe, accurate, or developmentally appropriate. The larger shift may extend far beyond ChatGPT. Instagram and other platforms have already moved toward age-aware experiences, and governments are debating how online services should separate children from adults. If companies are expected to provide different safety and privacy settings by age, they need some way to estimate or verify age. That could push age signals higher up the technology stack. Instead of every app independently examining behavior or requesting identification, operating systems and app stores could eventually provide privacy-preserving age categories. An app might learn only that a user is under 18, without receiving a birth date or identity document. OpenAI itself has suggested platform-level age signals as one possible direction. But even that raises a fundamental question. Who should decide what a 17-year-old is allowed to ask an AI? And what evidence should be required when the system gets the answer wrong? ChatGPT for teens is interesting because it makes an invisible judgment visible. The chatbot is no longer responding only to what you ask. It is also deciding what kind of user it believes is asking. That may provide meaningful protection. It may also normalize a web where access is shaped by behavioral age predictions running quietly in the background. The real test will be whether these systems can reduce harm without turning safety into permanent identity checks or opaque profiling. What would you prefer? A private age estimate that can be wrong, or a more accurate check that requires identification? Share your view in the comments and tell us what AI topic you want explained next.